No one noticed the moment it happened. There was no argument, no shouting, no scene, just a billionaire and a hotel worker. And a single sentence spoken out loud. You'd think something so small wouldn't matter. You'd be wrong. Because that sentence would trigger an investigation so quiet, so methodical, that by the time anyone realized what was happening, it was already too late to stop it. What makes this story unsettling isn't the insult itself. It's what followed. Why didn't she respond? Why didn't she react? Why did she simply step aside and let him pass? And more importantly, why did that moment end a career that took decades to build? This isn't a story about revenge. It's a story about observation. About how power behaves when it believes no one important is watching. And what happens when that belief is wrong. Because the man you're about to hear about didn't lose everything because he broke the law. He lost everything because someone finally listened, and never warned him they were. So ask yourself as you listen. How many people like him walk through places like this every day, confident, careless, certain? And how often do we mistake silence for weakness? The Grand Ashford Hotel was built for people who expected privacy. 5-star service. Discretion as a promise reminding guests that nothing inside these walls would ever follow them outside. Executives, politicians, financiers, people who lived on assumptions, passed through its doors every day. And standing just inside those doors, greeting each of them with the same calm, polite stillness, was Elena Morales. And by the end of this story, one question will remain. Was this man destroyed by the system? Or was the system simply waiting for someone patient enough to let him destroy himself? Because respect costs nothing. But arrogance? Arrogance always leaves evidence. The Grand Ashford Hotel did not advertise discretion. It didn't need to. Discretion was built into the walls, the lighting, the way conversations dissolved the moment elevators closed. It was the kind of place where people arrived under real names and left behind different ones. Where receipts were vague. Where meetings happened without calendars. Where silence was part of the service. If a guest wanted privacy, the Ashford didn't promise it. It assumed it. At exactly 6:10 a.m., the lobby looked like it always did at that hour, quiet, polished, waiting. Marble floors reflected the soft amber lights. The scent of citrus cleaner lingered faintly in the air. A pianist would arrive later. Executives would follow. By noon, the place would hum with importance. But right now it belonged to the staff. Elena Morales stood just inside the revolving doors, adjusting the lapel of her blazer. The uniform was modest, functional, designed to make her blend into the architecture rather than stand out from it. She checked her watch. 6:10. Right on time. Elena had worked at the Ashford for 9 years, 4 months and 17 days. She knew this because she kept track, not sentimentally but methodically. Details mattered. Patterns mattered. People mattered most when they didn't think they did. She greeted the morning security team by name. She nodded to the concierge setting out the day's itinerary folders. She adjusted a misplaced velvet rope without being asked. To anyone watching, she was exactly what she appeared to be, a senior hospitality associate assigned to guest flow and lobby coordination. Invisible by design. At 6:14 a.m., the first luxury sedan pulled up outside. Black. Tinted windows. Engine still running. Elena didn't look at the car. She never looked first. Guests who arrived early often believed they were unnoticed. That belief made them careless. The driver stepped out, opened the rear door and waited. The man who emerged wore confidence like a tailored garment. Designer suit. Custom shoes. No visible luggage. No hesitation in his stride. Billionaires often entered hotels this way, empty-handed as if the world itself carried their things. He scanned the lobby once, dismissively, already irritated by something invisible. Then his eyes landed on Elena. He didn't see her face first. He saw the uniform. His expression shifted, not into anger but into something quieter and more dangerous. Dismissal. He snapped his fingers. Not loudly. Just enough. Move, he said without slowing down. You people slow everything down. The words landed softly. That was the part most people misunderstood later. There was no yelling. No profanity. No scene worthy of replay. Just a sentence spoken with certainty. A few guests nearby glanced over. One smiled uncomfortably. Another looked away. Someone chuckled, then stopped when no one joined them. Elena met his eyes. She didn't flinch. "I'm sorry, sir," she said calmly. "Welcome to the Ashford." She stepped aside exactly as protocol required. Not too fast. Not too slow. Perfectly. The man didn't respond. He passed her without another glance, already reaching for his phone, already gone. What he didn't notice, what arrogance rarely does, was the badge clipped just beneath her blazer, partially concealed by the fold of fabric. No name. No title. Just a symbol most people wouldn't recognize. But Elena did. Because she'd earned it. She touched her earpiece once. Not visibly. Not obviously. A single confirmation tap. The lobby returned to normal. Or at least it looked like it did. Upstairs, the elevator carried the man toward the penthouse floors reserved for guests who paid for silence. He believed he was untouchable. He believed that because people like Elena had spent years letting men like him believe exactly that. What he didn't know was that his arrival had already been logged. His room assignment flagged. His billing method noted. His behavioral pattern categorized. Not because he was rude, but because arrogance creates predictability. And predictability creates exposure. Elena exhaled slowly. She had seen hundreds like him before. Executives who whispered instead of emailed. Investors who paid in cash. Men who believed power meant no one was watching. They always behaved the same way once they felt safe. And the Ashford was where they felt safest. By 6:47 a.m., the man had settled into the penthouse suite. By 7:03 he had requested privacy protocols. By 7:19 the first unregistered visitor arrived. Elena observed all of it without moving from her post. Not because she was curious. Because observation was her real job. She wasn't there to serve him. She was there to understand him. And over the next 10 days he would give her everything she needed, without ever realizing he had. By the third morning the billionaire had settled into a rhythm. That was always the giveaway. People who believed they were untouchable stopped adapting. They stopped checking exits. They stopped measuring words. They stopped imagining consequences. They became themselves. Elena noticed the pattern before anyone else did. He woke late. Ordered espresso, not coffee. Refused housekeeping but demanded fresh towels twice a day. Held meetings that never appeared on the hotel's internal calendar. Every interaction carried the same undertone. Impatience wrapped in entitlement. At 9:22 a.m. he came down to the lobby again. This time he was irritated. Something had gone wrong upstairs, an email not returned, a deal delayed, a person who hadn't responded fast enough. Power didn't like friction. It looked for somewhere safe to release it. The lobby was safe. Elena was repositioning a guest sign near the elevators when she felt it, that subtle shift in the air when someone decided to make you smaller. He stopped directly in front of her. "Is there a reason my car isn't ready?" he asked. His voice was measured. Calm. Almost polite. But his eyes weren't. "I'll check immediately, sir," Elena replied. She reached for her tablet. He sighed loudly. "You people always say that," he said, shaking his head. "Always checking. Never fixing." A few heads turned. This time there was no laughter. Just silence. Elena didn't rush. She verified the valet log. Exactly as expected, his car was ready. Waiting. On time. "It's available now," she said. "They're bringing it around." He leaned closer. Too close. "Do you know who I am?" he asked quietly. That question wasn't curiosity. It was a test. Elena met his gaze. "Yes, sir," she said. He smiled, thin, satisfied. "Good," he replied. "Then act like it." He turned away before she could respond. What he didn't see was Elena's hand steadying the tablet, not from fear but from focus. Because this wasn't just rudeness anymore. This was behavioral escalation. She logged it. Not emotionally. Procedurally. Timestamp. Language used. Witness proximity. Compliance didn't care about feelings. It cared about patterns. Upstairs the meetings grew louder. Men arrived separately and left together. Cash payments appeared on bills marked miscellaneous services. Room changes happened mid-stay for no operational reason. Elena noticed who never checked in at the front desk. Who avoided cameras. Who always arrived after sunset. She noticed the billionaire insulted staff more often when others were present. Power loved an audience. On day 5 he crossed another line. It was subtle. He made a joke. At her expense. "Careful," he told another guest, gesturing vaguely toward Elena. "Smile too much around staff and they start thinking they matter." The man laughed awkwardly. Elena didn't. She smiled politely. And tapped her earpiece. What? That wasn't a reaction. That was a signal. Because insults didn't trigger investigations. Arrogance did. By day 6, compliance had approved full monitoring on the penthouse suite. Every call routed. Every badge swipe logged. Every document left behind photographed and archived. Not illegally. Not secretly. According to rules the billionaire had unknowingly agreed to when he chose that hotel. Hotels like the Ashford existed because powerful people assumed no one would ever look too closely. Elena's role was to make sure someone always did. On the evening of day 7, the billionaire passed her again. This time he stopped. "You still here?" he asked, smirking. "Must be a slow life." Elena met his eyes. "Yes," she said simply. "It is." He laughed. He had no idea that by then, his name was already circulating quietly, not in gossip but in internal memos. Not as a suspect. As a certainty. Power had made him loud. And loud people leave echoes. By day 8, Elena no longer needed to watch closely. The billionaire was doing the work for her. People like him always did once they felt insulated. Once they believed the space around them was neutral. Once they assumed staff were furniture, useful, replaceable, silent. The Ashford was very good at letting powerful people believe that. At 7:46 p.m., Elena stood near the service corridor outside the penthouse elevators, clipboard in hand, posture relaxed. To anyone passing, she looked like she was tracking housekeeping rotations. She was tracking something else. 3 unregistered visitors arrived within a 12-minute window. Different entrances. Different elevators. Same destination. Penthouse C. Elena logged the sequence. She didn't follow. She didn't stare. She didn't interrupt. She never needed to. The Ashford systems did that for her. Inside the penthouse, the meeting unfolded exactly as expected. Voices were raised, not in anger but in confidence. Documents were spread across marble counters. Phones were placed face down but never powered off. Men like this believed secrecy came from intention, not infrastructure. They were wrong. At 8:19 p.m., one of the visitors stepped out briefly to take a call in the hallway. He spoke in low tones, unaware that sound carried differently near the service alcove. Elena didn't move. She didn't need to hear every word. She needed confirmation. She touched her earpiece. Twice. That was enough. Downstairs, a compliance analyst cross-checked names. Upstairs, metadata aligned with financial anomalies already flagged weeks earlier. Across the city, a quiet task force updated a file that had been waiting for a final trigger. This wasn't about one meeting. It never was. It was about repetition. The billionaire had chosen the Ashford because he thought it erased accountability. Because it had done so before. Because hotels like this were designed to disappear people, not expose them. What he didn't understand was that discretion worked both ways. It protected guests. And it protected investigations. The next morning he came down early. Angrier than usual. The night hadn't gone the way he wanted. Someone had pushed back. Someone had hesitated. Power didn't like resistance, especially when it came from equals. Elena was repositioning a luggage cart when he approached. "You," he said sharply. She turned. "Yes, sir?" "Tell your manager I want a different staff rotation. You're always here. It's distracting." There it was. The instinct to remove the witness. Elena nodded calmly. "I'll note your preference." He scoffed. "Good. Because places like this forget who keeps them in business." He walked away. Elena waited 3 seconds. Then she logged the interaction. Not as harassment. As attempted interference. That entry changed everything. By noon, oversight authorization expanded. By evening, investigators were no longer waiting for more data. They were preparing timing. Upstairs, the billionaire toasted a deal that hadn't fully closed. He laughed too loudly. He relaxed too soon. He left documents on the desk instead of locking them away. Power breeds carelessness. Carelessness leaves fingerprints. Elena passed the penthouse doors one last time that night. She paused, not because she needed to, but because she allowed herself a single moment of reflection. 9 years of invisibility. 9 years of listening. 9 years of watching people confuse politeness for weakness. She adjusted her blazer. The badge beneath it caught the light for just a second before disappearing again. Tomorrow she wouldn't be standing in the lobby. Tomorrow she would be in a different room. A quieter one. Where people spoke under oath. The billionaire felt it before he understood it. Not fear. Not suspicion. Silence. Messages that usually returned in minutes took hours. Assistants answered with rehearsed calm. A board call was rescheduled without explanation. That never happened. At the Ashford, silence wasn't comfort anymore. It was distance. He snapped at staff again, harder this time, but the reactions had changed. No flinching. No apologies rushed. Just professionalism without warmth. The hotel hadn't turned against him. It had moved past him. And for the first time he realized something unsettling. No one was trying to please him anymore. They didn't storm the hotel. They didn't announce themselves. They arrived the way real power does, quietly, legally, inevitability in their posture. 2 investigators. 1 compliance officer. 1 sealed folder. The billionaire was asked, politely, to remain in his suite. Asked, not ordered. That difference mattered. Elena wasn't in uniform when she entered the room later that day. She didn't speak at first. She didn't need to. The evidence spoke instead. Dates, transfers, recordings, logs. His voice, confident upstairs, now sounded thin in playback. His name appeared everywhere. Too many places. When he finally looked at Elena again, really looked, something shifted. You work here, he said slowly. She nodded. Yes. Nothing more. Then she unclipped the badge. Not dramatically. Not proudly. Just clearly. Compliance Task Force. Embedded oversight. Hospitality placement. He stared at it longer than necessary. You were watching me, he said. Elena met his eyes. We were, she corrected. Plural. That was when he understood. She was never the lowest person in the room. She was the last one he should have underestimated. The fallout didn't explode. It unraveled. Accounts frozen. Contracts paused. Partners vanished. The board resigned before the headlines hit. The story spread without names first, then with documents. By the time the media called it a sudden scandal, it was already over. The billionaire never shouted. He didn't threaten. He just went very still. Power doesn't scream when it dies. It disappears. Elena testified weeks later. Not in uniform. Not defensively. Calm. Precise. Unemotional. She didn't accuse. She explained. Patterns. Choices. Arrogance. When asked why she stayed silent so long, she answered simply. People tell the truth when they believe no one important is listening. The room understood. The billionaire lost his title. Then his access. Then his relevance. Not prison. Something worse. Obscurity. Elena returned to work. Not because she had to. Because she chose to. Different role. Same discipline. The Ashford remained what it always was. A place where people felt safe being careless. But now, someone was always watching. Not with anger. With patience. He thought respect was optional. He thought silence meant weakness. He thought power meant immunity. But arrogance only works when no one is paying attention. And the people you ignore are often the ones deciding when it ends. You're listening to Coziness Stories. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next story waiting for you.